This is Reah, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more.
Welcome back. And today I am reading chapter seven of Dirt on My Cloth. This chapter is titled Perfectly Placed. There's only 2 chapters left after this, so I'm a little sad, but I'm happy to get it out there, and now people can listen and hopefully be encouraged to go buy the book. There are only a few copies left of the original unrevised version. The revised version will be out later this year, um, due to some editing and things that from the first version. I worked with a publisher of the first version, and there's just some things that I would like to tweak. So that'll be out later this year. But there is about there's a few copies still left of this original unrevised first version. So chapter 7, perfectly placed. Here we go. I first became a mother at the age of 14. My son was born in March of 2000, right before my 15th birthday. Now, I see comments all the time about other people who have shared their stories of being a teenage mother, and people are like, "How gross! Promoting teenage pregnancy." Blah, 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 blah. That's not what I'm doing. Obviously, my kids, it's not acceptable for my children to become parents at 14. They haven't. They were taught. I would like to think that I taught them certain things that have kept them being preventative and or abstaining and things like that. Um, but whatever. I'm not here to promote teen pregnancy, but certain things happen in our life and we talk about it so other people feel related to. And that is what we're doing. So um, my second child was born in July of 2003, shortly after my 18th birthday. My youngest daughters were born during my marriage to their father when I was 22 and 24. While I do not encourage my children to have young children, or well, I don't have young children, just have older kids automatically. Anyway, while I do not encourage my children to have children young, my children were perfectly placed in my life to get to the places we are now. I do not believe they deserve to have to experience my mistakes and failures because I had them when I was young. And it may be even selfish for me to say that I feel that they were perfectly placed. However, I believe they were. You have to forgive me. I'm still recovering from bronchitis. First time I've had it, and I have been coffee and gunky for like weeks after I stopped coughing my face off. So, however, I believe they were, and the only thing I would change about them is that my mistakes would hurt them less. I love you, little fart buckets, and everything you have brought in my life. You each hold a special place in my heart and have a specific purpose. Oh my gosh. You each hold a special place in my heart and have a specific purpose for your life's existence. Thank you for being everything you are, perfectly placed in all of our lives. I first met my bonus baby right after he was born. I had not been pregnant, given birth, or had a baby in the house in 6 years. Although I had been through raising a baby before, it had been a while. The one thing I had not done before was have 5 children, or any children without preparing for having them. I had not raised a baby without knowing his or her father or anything about them. I definitely had not raised a baby without carrying him or her in my uterus and connecting with him or her for about 9 months. That, however, was about to change fast. So when I say not knowing much, if anything, about biological parents, or I'm not, I haven't raised a baby without preparing for them, preparing for having them, not in a sense of like having what you need in the home. And, most of the time when people adopt, it's a preparation process. But this was kind of like hey, here we are right now. Get all the shit you need, like tonight. Since everyone's adoption story is different, I decided to share mine. I'm sure a lot of moms can relate, but I can almost guarantee no one's story is exactly like mine. Unless it is, and in that case, I would love to hear your version. I'd love to hear stories like mine. I was friends with a coworker whose daughter I befriended as well. She had recently found out she was pregnant. In order to protect her privacy, I will not disclose how many children she previously birthed that did not stay in her care, but she did already have children that she couldn't take care of. Once she had the baby, she had a lot of struggles and was frequently unable to keep the baby with her. So he stayed with me, and I later came to find out coworkers of mine as well. By the time he was 2 months old, he was with me when I was not at work. He stayed with me overnight a lot because his birth mother did not have a place to live. She thankfully had ended a toxic relationship and had to move, and she slept in her car because our family could not provide her a place to stay. Over time, my church family made strides to help her get her life in order and get all of her children back, but she decided to make other choices. After about 4 months, the Department of Social Services got wind of her living situation and required her to place the child in a home. She was with friends when she found this out and decided to leave the newborn with them. Upon finding out some very inappropriate conversations on social media, such as her friends joking about selling the baby, she informed me that her baby was going to be placed into a home. We decided to contact DSS to have him placed with me instead. Finally, progress. Now, I know there are two sides to every story. I can only tell my side from my perspective. What I was told from her perspective and what I was shown from the other side in my perspective are different stories, and I'll tell you both. Why would I tell anyone a different side of the story? Well, only telling my side would not necessarily be fair. Also, both sides are beneficial and are guaranteed to be relatable for someone and potentially help someone feel understood. What I expected adoption to be like was maybe fundraising, getting finances together, and buying necessary furniture and necessities to plan to bring a child home from another country or even a local foster home or adoption agency. That was kind of my like understanding of adoption. That you go through this process. I didn't really know anybody who had adopted in this same kind of situation. Um, so I'd actually previously planned and talked about adoption later in life, even though I had biological children, because I felt like there were other children who deserved what I could supply, especially when my children were older and creating success for themselves. I did not plan for it to be a decision I was asked to make within months of meeting a friend's daughter and then her newborn. In my experience, adoption was consisted of meeting a woman who had a daughter who was pregnant with her third child and ending up taking that child as my own. That's what my adoption story has consisted of rather than planning. When I met my child's birth mother, she was struggling in various areas of her life and was not capable of caring for another child. She was having difficulties in her relationship with her existing children, and in addition to financial and addiction struggles. When her child was first born, he was constantly moved around from one house to another between the houses of mine and his grandmother's coworkers or slept in the car with his birth mother. As you know, he spent a lot of time with me, or as you've heard, starting not long after birth, but it was not till I got a call one day when I happened to have a few days off work and was told to expect to have him for the next day or two. With help and donations of my at the time church, I was able to get things I needed to care for him. Once he started learning to talk, I decided it was time to make a permanent decision for his care. I didn't want him to not be able to call me mom when the other children he was growing up with called me mom, and frankly, he needed a sense of family, trust, and loyalty, none of which was given to him at birth. He needed to stay safe and cared for in a consistent and stable home, or as stable as I could provide at the time. He was my baby, and it was time to decide whether things were going to change. His birth mother was going to have to step up or remove herself from the picture completely. Sometimes people are not beneficial to keep around. I know that a birth connection is important and that it is important for him to know where he came from, but his safety and having a dedicated mother was important at the time, more important at the time. It was important that he was not around drugs, cigarette smoke, and alcohol, and not staying up till 3 a.m. eating Reese's cups before he could even walk steadily, for the entertainment of various adults to record and post on the internet. There at the time, I had let him go with said birth mother. He was barely fully walking. Let him go for the night and like saw a video of him, like it was like th 3 a.m. that I think the night before maybe this video had been posted or something like that. He was eating a Reese's and like he had been like they had been like giving him soda and Reese's cups and stuff. And he's like, I don't know, maybe around not even one, couldn't have been one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know. It was a dumb small age. Uh, I don't even give him. I don't even give like kids caffeine and chocolate like that at like 5. Like things are, you know, especially not at 3 a.m. I'm not even up at 3 a.m. and neither are you. I don't know. Just I know different people do things differently, but I was looking at it at the time from like this is a baby and this is crazy. So I had her actually, uh, or somebody might have sent me the video, but I had her bring him back immediately. This particular situation was one that made me decide to discontinue the very rare visits with his birth mother. Having to beg and hassle her to take him, just the fear for his safety was something I would never do again. I had issues before with having to force a man to actually act like a father, but I had never had baby mama issues. I never dealt with a parent irresponsible on such a level. This was a whole new level of stress that I was not prepared for. I even think with open adoptions, the adoptive parents have control of what goes on because they can control when and where the child gets to see the biological parents. And it wasn't, it was kind of like that in the beginning. I mean, I controlled it sorry, because I was the one like, hey, it reminded me of my oldest with his father at when he was small, like, hey, you need to come spend time with your kid, kind of thing. And it was like deja vu all over again. It's like I don't even have it's like another baby daddy that I didn't plan for. Like one that I didn't plan for. Um I even my perspective began as seeing a woman who was struggling who would my perspective began as seeing a woman who was struggling, would need help with her baby, and looked up to me, so she chose me to be there for her baby when she could not. It then shifted to see a woman who had many other interests aside from taking care of her baby, as she stopped trying to provide for him in terms of support in any aspect of financial, food, physical care, or transportation. As I did not have a vehicle at the time and was basically a single mother with a grocery store job and an unstable romantic relationship, but I was a present and consistent mother and I could provide a safe, stable home for this new life. Looking back, it was hard. It was hard taking on the financial responsibility since our agreement was that she provided food, formula, diapers, and necessities for him because I was not in the financial position to do so. At one point, I even questioned why she chose me to take care of him when I was so unprepared financially, mentally, and emotionally. This is the kind of just a conversation that I had with myself. Like, why did you pick me? like, I I don't know that I can do this. I don't have the money for it. I don't have the space in my house. Like, nothing was like there was no way to prepare. Like it was just kind of, all right, well, here we are. Like, this is yours now. And oh, all the stuff that comes with it. Oh no, you got that. You got that too. Oh, I can do it. Oh, I know I can do it, but you should just do it. Like that's how it what it turned into. like I can financially provide the necessities, the bare necessities. Yeah, I can do that, but you got it, you know. Which was not the agreement. The agreement wasn't that. So it was kind of like having a deadbeat baby daddy again. Um, there were times that I was so stressed that I was impatient with him as a baby and I barely slept. Welcome to parenthood. I know these things. It had just been a while, and so it's just kind of it's just another unpreparation. What kind of person is impatient with a baby? Apparently, the same kind of person who refocused their whole life to provide everything they could for that baby. The same person who realized they were tired and impatient with not being able to rely on the person responsible for this life. Like I said, I was used to this with my son's father, but not used to this neglectful behavior from a mother. I suppose that is why I was chosen the role of his mother, because although he effectively had a biological egg donor, that was the extent of the role chosen for her to play. Now, this does not excuse her for being absent and neglecting her baby. It simply explains why the roles were assumed as they were. As time went by, papers were submitted through our county and were lost by the county social worker. After moving and not having those same services available through the county, I contacted a lawyer for completion of paperwork. However, since my household has been the only has been difficult to move forward with, we are still working. We are still working on it. It is also a much more difficult process. It is also a much more difficult process because I have been withheld from any contact information on the birth mother, and my attempts to make contact have been blocked or rejected by the birth mother and her family. Now, again, mind you, this was about 5 years ago when this portion was written. So there were there was a period of time where uh, any communicating or conversations that I tried to have with the biological mother were stopped by another member of the family. They did it made her upset, it blah blah blah, whatever. So me talking to her, which is kind of funny because the same thing happened for a while. Fred, he came on here and he did an episode as well, but there was a period of time where his partner uh wouldn't allow me to talk to him because I made him upset because I told him what he needed to be doing that he wasn't doing. And so same kind of thing. I wasn't given access to contact the other biological parent in this situation because I made them upset. So now I want to shift perspective for a second because I promised that I would not be biased. I mean, I am biased though, it's my kid, and he was treated unfairly. So I'm trying not to be biased though. My account of the events from her perspective are based on conversations she and I had during the course of various events. She was struggling, needed help, and looked up to me like a big sister. So these are things from, okay, let me give you a little bit of her perspective, although I did kind of talk shit about her. It's nothing she hasn't heard before. And everything that I write about in this book, it's things, it's real life accounts. So some of it, even to me as I read it, it's like, dang, that's kind of talking shit a little bit. But anybody who I've written about, I'm particular about who I went into detail about and who I didn't. And the people that I didn't go into detail about, I did that for a reason. There's some people in here that I mentioned, but I didn't go into detail about them specifically, like other than just mentioning them generally in, the situation, being a factor in the situation. But um the people that I did kind of like go in on, they are fully aware. They either read the book or like they were there and they know that it's real. So they also there's some people that I talk about events within here that is a is negatively toned in some portions that um we have since reconciled. Now, nothing that I say in here is untrue, so nothing changes in the fact of like, well, I wouldn't go back and say it. I would still say everything I said because they're factual events, but I'm just saying, like, my sister and I have since made up and we're close. My stepmom, like, there's things in here that's a little difficult to talk about and a little difficult maybe to receive for someone who doesn't know them, but it's okay. They've read it. We've talked about it, and it's nothing that they don't already know, including her. So, um, I've not said anything in here I haven't said to the person. So, uh, so just to put that out there. So this point is kind of her perspective on things from conversations that I've had with her. She was struggling, needed help, and looked up to me like a big sister. She felt comfortable and trusting enough to ask me for help. Once her living situation became unstable, she needed somewhere for her son to live on paper. We discussed it, and she made a call to the Department of Social Services to have him placed with me for 90 days. Things came up in her life after that placement where she was unable to get back over to my house to see him. She did not have a job, so she could not provide the things he needed, and her car died, so she could not provide transportation, and the food stamps she received were needed to buy food for herself. After After some time passed, her life did not allow her to visit unless her mother could pick her up and bring her, and she agreed with me that obtaining legal adoption paperwork was appropriate so that I could have legal guardianship and rights over him, as well as having his mother's name on his birth certificate changed to mine. The legal rights being given to me and the birth mother's name being changed was not an issue. But she said a little time was needed before signing the paperwork because it was important to consider what people would think of her first. We went to lunch one day and had the paper signed and notarized together. That was done. Now it was time to move on with life. From this point forward, we did not have a conversation related to him or the adoption, but we continued to have a friendship for a few years where once a year the question of how is he was asked. There was a visit in which her and her boyfriend came to pick up some things to scrap and make money selling and help us move. There was another visit during a Christmas gathering one year to drop off toys and eat together. That was a doozy because they were high the whole time. After that, contact ceased. And that's why I ceased contact because coming to our Christmas gathering at a church and getting high and being high, spending half the time outside, it's just kind of like, I wouldn't let one of my kids' fathers do that. I'd be like, you gotta go. And I probably wouldn't contact them. It's just be respectful. She told me it was too difficult for me to see him and not be able to be there for him. That concludes her perspective, as we have not spoken after that directly. I only have contact with another family member, mainly when I need something from them legally for him, or when I attempt to get information or contact her through them. Again, that was 5 years ago. It can be extremely frustrating for two reasons. I have no idea what is going on with her, and it would be much easier to get things done if I were able to meet her or have help with the cost of signing legal documents. I know, I'm so selfish. This most important thing is that my son is where he belongs. It was difficult, frustrating, and a stressful journey. Despite the journey, he is such an amazing, intelligent, beautiful, thoughtful, considerate, mini-me, blessing, the perfect addition. God's gift to our family and worth all the nonsense that has surrounded our fight to do his best with him. My adoption journey was unconventional and has lasted over a 4 year span of what feels like a constant fight. I know that I'm not alone, and I know my path was meant for me because I'm strong enough to handle it. Conventional or not, taking on the responsibility of someone else's life that you did not create for yourself is one of the most rewarding decisions anyone can make. Never disallow or doubt yourself for feeling and acknowledging all the emotions, stress, victories, difficulties, milestones, uncertainties, and accomplishments that comes with making such a decision. Although the majority of this chapter was created to talk about my youngest child, There are other people in my life that I have that have to give credit for being perfectly placed. If I do not mention them, even if I do not mention them by name, there are people who have come into my life for seasons and people have been there since my beginning. The thing about friendships is that we have some that last forever and we have some that only feel like they have been they only feel like they have been there forever, but began a few years ago. There are things you find yourself being comfortable enough to tell someone you've known for 20 years, and things you find yourself more comfortable telling someone you've known for 6 months. No matter when your friendship begins, sometimes it has to be perfectly placed to be successful and be precisely what you need. Sometimes the bad experiences are perfectly placed for the time you need them, not sometimes the bad experiences are perfectly placed for the time you need to learn from them or come back from them. And sometimes the good times are perfectly placed. People come and go whether we plan for them to do so or not. Regardless of the circumstances and the imperfect decisions I made surrounding their creation, their birth, and their lives, my children were all perfectly placed. So many decisions were made. So many decisions made were to learn a lesson, to grow as a person, or to prepare me for something else. Like the fact that I wouldn't have a book to write about without some of these perfectly placed experiences. Because realistically, even though I used to not believe this either, everyone has some significance in our lives, whether it is something you learn from them or the simplicity of remembering a single detail about them. The pain, anxiety, fear, and inconsistency of experiences can make them seem random, unplanned. Maybe some of them are, but maybe some of them aren't. Maybe some of them are placed where they are for a reason and not a random series of events we just happen to become a part of, because some of them are random event. Oh, but some of them aren't. But some of them aren't. Some some of the things we experience in our life have necessary points, necessary places, are necessary for memories, or are presented for specific meanings and experiences. Examples include the kid I knew in elementary school who I had a love-hate relationship, who liked to eat fish and grits, which smelled disgusting, but turned out to be the topic we discussed where we stopped being jerks to one another and actually had a conversation. Me and the kid, we hated each other. We were at my friend's apartment building where they lived, and he lived there too. We absolutely hated each other. And one day he came out, he's eating fish and grits. Now, I love shrimp and grits, but I didn't eat fish for a very large portion of my life because I didn't like the way it smelled. So to me, fish and grits was disgusting. Um, and he's eating it one day, and I'm like, "What the hell are you eating?" Probably exactly what I said. Um, like, what are you eating? And so we actually started talking, and like we're cool after that. Like we didn't hate each other anymore. And I don't know why over fish and grits, but anyway, it's not like somebody that's been in my life forever. I just remember that moment about that kid. And I say kid, we were probably in middle school. So if you're that kid, shout out to you. Hope you're doing well. Uh, Another example is the couple I acted like a homophobic jerk over that led me to a friendship I'm very grateful for, which then led to me stop, which then led me to stop being a homophobic jerk. Or my friend's little sister, who I became close friends with, even after I became sworn enemies with her sister. Or the boy you dated for a day in elementary school and spell yelled at him that it's OVER on the field at school when you found out he liked another girl. But it taught you to stop being so dramatic at 10. So apparently I dated this kid for like a day and I found out, oh, I thought he liked somebody else or something. And I'm like walking down the field at school and I'm like, look back at him because he's talking to the girl. I'm like, it's OVER. Literally, I was probably yeah, I was in elementary school. So stupid. But that memory sticks out to me because I'm like, really? You're so dramatic. Um, And those moments where we don't think hold significance at the time, yet become little pieces of life that stick into your brain no matter how big or small you think they play. Those are perfectly placed things too sometimes. Another random perfectly placed thing in my life is the McDonald's up the street where I moved a few years ago. I know it doesn't seem like something of the same significance as children or husbands, but I promise it belongs here. That McDonald's is just a McDonald's, and whether it was placed way before I moved here so that it could be a homework spot, hangout spot, an iced coffee favorite spot for me and my kids, it was placed there for us to be near. It isn't even about the location or the fact that it is always clean and cared for by the people I love for one reason or another. Dada, who loves Noah to absolute death and gives him a toy every time he comes. Or Asia, who I met when I was a youth lead in church, telling me about getting a ticket for expired car related things when I came through one night during her shift to get iced coffee. Or Sarah, who moved away for a bit when her boyfriend, who was a manager, got fired and was so happy to see me when she came back to work after moving back there. These are just people that, as you can probably tell, I talk a lot. So these are people that I got to know I was in college at the time, yes, just a few years ago. And I would take the kids to school and I would go sit at McDonald's. And that's where I would study and do homework and things like that. And I met a lot of people and had conversations. There's to this day, and I don't see them anymore, but there was a random older couple. We just happened to, hey, how are you one day? And then we saw each other all the time. We'd have little conversations. It was just nice. I have people like that where I live now. Um, Although where I live now, it's about the same because the place I lived before this in Concord, the neighborhood was like its own like little city. It was massive. Like things were close to the to that neighborhood, that little tiny city. Um, but that's how I mean, I have relationships. There's, somewhere very close to my office. Hey, Reah, hey, like the places I go around here locally, because I try to stay local, um, where I put my money. Like, I know someone at every place that I visit because, you just take a second, you chat and you ask how people are or whatever. Um, I don't know. Oh, or the woman whose name I cannot recall, who may or may not have given Jade a Sprite when she had ordered water, or the men and women who are always so sweet every time we come through, especially the ones who recognize when I come by myself, or that I may have already been through once that day. I don't know whether that place was put there for me or if I was put there for that place. But I do know that the place is just a McDonald's to most people. It's a place where I take my kids at random. Part of my love language is making people I love happy through feeding them and buying them things that I know what they will love. Part of it is having the passionate desire for them to have experiences that will change their lives and maybe even just change a moment of their day. The little details about going to that by that particular McDonald's are just such sweet things to enjoy and experience regardless of the physical building. I appreciate how random people can be so loving and positively influential in such a small portion of lives on the grand scale of the people they encounter each day. One of my kids said that everyone at McDonald's is nice to me because I'm nice to everyone. It may be that they are just nice to me because I'm nice, or it could be they're just nice people like me. Either way, these little sweet moments have been perfectly placed in my life. And I didn't I didn't talk about things like my mom or my husband or, you know, anyone who knows me knows that my family is like my everything. And that includes my husband. At the time writing this book, we were through most of the writing of this book, we either didn't live together yet or we had just moved in together recently. Um, there's a lot of the things that I could talk about being perfectly placed in the chapter, but my son and my children, but the events surrounding my youngest son were just something that I thought people could really relate to, and that could really benefit people from hearing about and whatnot. So, another thing that I don't talk about in the book is my current husband. And this man was perfectly placed in my life as well as a 14-year-old kid. Um, Not long after I'd had my first child, I met my now husband. And the timing of our marriage was perfectly placed because honestly, had we moved in together or gotten married before we did, I don't think things would be the same. I think sometimes we have to go through certain life experiences to be successful at certain things. And I think that our marriage is one of those things. Um, so I do think that, and my ex-husband as well, I think that relationship was perfectly placed because even though it didn't last, um, he was perfectly placed as my children's father, and the events surrounding our relationship. And so, there's other things that I could talk about, but as far as the things in the book, and maybe I'll reference those in this next book, but um that is it for chapter 7, perfectly placed. So, um make sure you subscribe so that whether it's you see it on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, subscribe so you can get notifications and stuff and see little reels and things like that and get updates on books and um you can get my shirt. I think I got it on Temu. So yeah, see ya. Check us out on YouTube at Reah Higgs, ReahHagues. You can also keep up with us on Instagram at Just the Who Podcast.